Hello guys, Brotherhood member Mars here, giving you an online commentary for a 4v4 31k battle. Here is myself, Brotherhood member Mars, who has brought 4 cavalry, these are really upgraded cavalry with 2 chevrons of experience and gold attack. And I've brought myself a 2 archer auxilia units to pepper the enemy with arrows and to weaken them maybe before battle. And I've got 4 pilot shield units, each of them consisting of urban cohorts, and I've got myself 9 urban cohorts as my main body and a legionary first cohort as my general. I've done this so I can increase the morale of my army, and I have not put very many upgrades on my general because I won't be using this unit very much in battle. Here's my teammate. First teammate, my Brotherhood member Clash, who has brought 6 Praetorian Cavalry gold, and has brought 10 or 11 urban cohorts with 1 town watch. So he's going to be using 1 urban cohort and 1 town watch as pilot shields. Town watch are good pilot shield units, as they're really inexpensive, and they can easily absorb pilas as any sort of other unit. But the problem with these guys is that they can't throw anything back, and against arrow fire, these guys die very quickly. And he's put his army together very tightly, so whenever a cavalry charge may come in, he can be able to defend against himself. And here's my third teammate, iansserver, 31k player. He's brought himself an average 31k build consisting of 14 urban cohorts and 6 Praetorian cavalry, in which he's used 2 as a pilot shield and the other 12 as his main body. And on the other team is Godslayer. Some of you might know him as IOW Godslayer. For this battle he chose not to wear his tags. He's brought himself what looks to be 1 archer auxilia, 6 Praetorian cavalry, and 13 urban cohorts with 1 legionary first cohort. His next teammate is Lac Jac, who has brought 14 urban cohorts and 6 Praetorian cavalry, a basic 31k build. And next is Brotherhood member Legion 22, who has brought 6 Praetorian cavalry, 2 archer auxilia, and 12, what looks to be 11 or 12 urban cohorts with 1 legionary first cohort in the middle to provide morale. Something unusual about his army is that for a pilot shield unit, he's picked Principes. Principes are good units because, 1, they're really cheap, and they can also throw things back. They can throw things back like pilas and all that sort of stuff. So they're good units to bring as a pilot shield unit. However, like the Town Watch in Clash's army, Principes against urban pilas, they die very quickly. So let's see how he uses it, and I believe you'll be able to use it effectively. Not much is going on in the exposition of the battle. We're all meeting up. Usually this is done in 31k at the beginning of the battles, because if one of the armies runs off without another army supporting it, then that army may end up getting isolated, and it often will be routed, and oftentimes this leads to the whole team losing. So something like running off might work in a one-on-one, but in a team battle you need to work with your teammates and ensure that you are working together to try and take out the enemy team. And usually we do this by meeting up. Unless you have archers and you're guarding them with cavalry and you're trying to bait the other team in, you should not be running off on your own. And even if you are, you should bring as much cavalry and infantry support as you possibly can.
Units, march!
So if you notice that I've placed my I've spread out my archer units in a 2x2 formation right here. This is often a very good formation for archers against archers because they're less likely to die from archer fire, and because they're so spread out, these guys won't get hit by arrow fire so much. So against archers, these guys are extremely good. However, against infantry, unless they are really bad infantry, like for example Town Watch, or Urbans have their backs against these guys, then Archer Auxilia won't do very much damage against regular urban cohorts. However, that's where, based on what the situation looks like, you may turn them into loose and tight formation. Tight formation makes these archers really susceptible to enemy fire, and they often die very quickly as a result. But however, they do a lot of damage, and can often take out general units, depending on how many arrows are fired into them. So as you can see, I'm just doing a bit of an outflanking motion. Because my formation is so wide and I'm facing legions type formation, I can try and take advantage of this. I can do outflanking maneuvers without having to worry about being outflanked, because my army is so large in comparison. So I'm just firing shots into the Principes. For some reason they haven't done very much damage. I'm guessing that's because they're in loose formation, and this formation of archers is only good against other archers. So if you've noticed that I've placed my cavalry a bit back from my army as compared to Clash and iansserver. I've done this because oftentimes when the enemy team has archers, they often aim for your cavalry, unless your infantry body is turned to them. Because my cavalry is so upgraded, I don't want to use them so quickly, and I need to often shield these guys and use them when the time is right, because with such cavalry like this, it can really turn the tide of battle. Not much is going on, just a lot of skirmishing going on. Godslayer's also gone into a 2x2 formation here. This is it's a very good formation. Not much is going on, just a lot of arrow fire. As you can see, Clash is approaching forward. You know, one thing I'm concerned in this battle is Clash's lack of Pilot Shield. When I look at my opponent, in comparison to Lac Jac's Pilot Shield, Clash's Pilot Shield formation lacks depth. It has width, but it lacks that depth, and if it were to meet with Lac's army, I fear that Lac may overcome Clash in terms of skirmishing, because he can easily place more units as Pilot Shield units and stay balanced. However, if Clash's main urban cohort Pilot Shield line is broken, then these 5 urban cohorts are going to be completely exposed to any sort of fire, and putting 5 of these units in Pilot Shield formation, as as pilot shield formation when they're supposed to be his main bulk line of infantry, it kind of concerns me because this formation could lead to Clash losing a lot of infantry in the when Lac and Clash do have to meet. So I'm a bit concerned. Alright, so Clash has set put one of his frontline units in loose formation. I realized the amount of urban cohorts that I realizes the depth of Lac's pilot shield formation and wants to meet that so he doesn't lose most of his infantry. Okay, so as you can see, Godslayer is unfortunately, even though his archers are more well upgraded than mine, losing the skirmish. Although my archers are less upgraded, they are winning because, sad to say, but those quotes on the loading screen just are not very accurate. When it comes to archer skirmishing, if you want to win, either you have some sort of fast-moving cavalry to take out the enemy archers, or you can bring more archers than the enemy and pour arrows upon the other team's archers. So, in terms of raw skirmishing, more is better. However, this can't be said the same for cavalry and infantry. The Legion's brought in his archer auxilia. He's put them into a bit of a loose formation, however it has depth. I'm guessing he's doing this to damage our infantry or aim for our cavalry. Sometimes the archer auxilia can't really kill the Praetorian cavalry from the front, and so what the enemy team often does is that they bring all the cavalry over to one side, so they force them to move, and they end up killing a lot of the Praetorian cavalry. However, if there is a lot of arrow fire that's directed onto only one Praetorian cavalry unit, they end up losing up a lot of men. So as you can see, Clash has lost a few cavalry. See, this is why it's good to often deploy your cavalry back far enough, but close enough to your army that they can support your army when the army needs its help, but also so it can stay out of the long-range missiles. So it's good to have a balance between the distance between your army and your cavalry. And since cavalry is fast moving, like they can move faster than most infantry, it's not going to take very long to support your army. So sometimes a good idea to station your cavalry back in case there's a lot of archers. As you can see, Lac is moving his army over, probably in a means to double team this side. And it's a good idea because if they were to attack on Legion's side, number one, the width of my formation is very large, so I can probably sustain two of those armies. And on top of that, I have very upgraded cavalry over here, so until my allies can come and help, I can hold off until they come. Because there's average cavalry over here, and I don't want to move my cavalry over so quickly unless all the archers are gone, so I don't lose cavalry, they can try and strike onto Ian's side and get a quick route. Well, I did not notice this, but Godslayer has divided up his army into two. And this is often a very good tactic for tight formation armies, such as these ones right here, because one army can hold off from another, while another one flanks while the cavalry comes over. These split armies have a big advantage of flanking, and because they're one group, they can be easily controlled by another. However, if one of these groups gets isolated, or if one of these groups routes, then the other half of the army is going to be in disarray. And oftentimes, against long formations, like wide formations, these armies are basically useless. If we were to combine this into one army, it would probably be 2 lines of 8 infantry. So it has its benefits and it has its pros and cons. Alright, so as you can see, Legion 22 has gotten one of his principales to attack me. However, one of those units have routed. One of Clash's Town Watch units have routed, and yeah. So iansserver is pretty clever here. So he knows that there's a whole army on his back, and that because there's a loose order pilot shield unit right here, that they can come and outflank and throw pilots. So what he's done is he's gotten one unit and he's put them in the loose formation. And surprisingly, these urban cohorts, it's a Praetorian cohort. These urban and Praetorians alike, in loose formation and guard mode, they can actually hold off for a while unless there's a lot of infantry and cavalry. So he's done something really well. Alright, so Legion 22 has gone into Testudo formation. So because of his lack of infantry, he can't really sacrifice any, put any into loose formation. So he put them into Testudo. It's a good idea. It's also a good way to slow down the enemy. However, this can leave you susceptible to a lot of cavalry attacks, and the Testudo's #1 enemy. Well, there's 2 enemies, to be honest. The first enemy is arrows in the back of the Testudo, hitting the turtle in the back of the shell, and cavalry attacks. Those are the 2 biggest enemies of Testudos. Yeah, they're very susceptible, but they have their pros and cons, like the split army. The Godslayer's got one of his pilot shield units, and he's attacking Ian's pilot shield. He's also gotten the one from his second army to attack. Okay, so something clever. So he's taken a bit of a Roman tactic, which is to take the formation or to adapt to the enemy, and he split his army into 2. This will allow him to counter the second army, as well as provide support for his cavalry. So, very good movements by Ian. Alright, so I've shifted up ahead. There's no possibility of me routing because my units are still eager and fresh. Alright, so Clash has gotten 2 of his pilot shield units, and they're now attacking the bulk of Lac's army. Alright, so Clash is aggressively moving forward. Leave my archers have run out of arrows. Oh, this one's still going. Alright, so right now it's light skirmishing. Maybe a few units are going. However, I believe that everything will kick off from this side, because the cavalry here really look to be on the edge of everything, and infantry on Godslayer's side moving very, very aggressively. I have one big concern that Ian's general is a bit too close to the main battle lines, and he might lose it very quickly. As you can see, Godslayer is throwing pilots and charging. Now action will kick off. So iansserver is charging. I've moved my army up. Alright, so as you can see, Godslayer is charging back. He's counterattacking. Now here comes Clash's cavalry. Oh, look at all that cavalry. Alright, so the upper edge seems to be on our side. Few of Godslayer's cavalry has just routed. Although they have won this first engagement, there are still plenty of his infantry, and there's still the other lots of cavalry waiting in the back. And by Clash keeping a reserve of cavalry right here, and me keeping my cavalry over there at the moment, I was able to keep the other cavalry at the bay. Alright, so I'm bringing my cavalry over. Things seem to be getting really saucy over here. Alright, so I'm gonna pull the trigger. I'm gonna charge straight into these guys. Trying to get a counterattack going. I want to aim straight for the edge of those Brudii units so I can get a good charge bonus coming in. And then Legion's cavalry is charging me from my side, so Clash is getting those additional 3. By doing this, we can counterattack their cavalry. Alright, things do not seem to be looking good for us. We may have won that first engagement, but we are losing a lot of infantry, and Ian's general is exposed. Okay, there we go. Okay, this guy is dead. Oh, he's fighting to the death. Oh, Jesus. Alright, so Ian's army is basically shattered.
Our allies have lost their leader.
Well, there we go.
This turn of events may make them lose heart.
Ian's general has just died, so that's a big morale loss. Clash's cavalry just routed, so Clash is bringing over some more infantry. Ian is putting the rest of his infantry that haven't routed yet. What I didn't notice was Ian was actually trying to attack Legion's troops, and I've noticed that since this flank is gone, if I stay here, I'll be toast. So what Ian did was he sacrificed the rest of his cavalry to try and make Legion's cavalry busy, and I'm going to get as close as I can to Clash. A good strategy, often to do, and what most 31k players don't do, is that when one flank dies and your flank is still alive, what happens is that you should always run your whole entire infantry body, even if there's cavalry charging your back and there's arrows firing from the back. Always run to your ally so you can help them. By doing this, you can create a bit of a defensive stance and support each other when needed. So here I'm going to charge my cavalry straight into Legion's general. That was a thunderous charge. Even though it did not rout any of Legion's units, it surely made a dent in his army. Okay, so Legion's gonna counter charge. He's missed my cavalry, and I've put all my infantry into guard formation. So this makes it so it's more resistant to any sort of cavalry attack. Alright, so I'm gonna pull my cavalry back. I'm ready for another charge. I'm gonna charge straight back in. Alright, so Clash is holding off really well here, considering how much cavalry and infantry is on his side. I'm charging straight into Legion's general. I wanna try and take out that general as soon as possible, because when a general dies, the morale of the opponent armies and the armies around them drop like a stone. Alright, I'm gonna pull back. Alright, so some of Legion's units are winning. I mean, routing? I mean, they are winning, but they are routing, so it's a good sign. Alright, so I'm gonna charge straight into Legion's general. Okay, I've just routed one of his units close to it. Alright, so Legion's trying to get Clash's main infantry body. I put some units over there, but I don't think they'll be able to hold all that cavalry. So here we see is a bit of a hammer and anvil. Although the charge is a bit weak, it will cause a lot of morale penalty. So I'm going to counter charge with his cavalry being isolated. I'm going to hit them from the backs. Alright, so although I did rout his cavalry, I was a bit too late because of that hammer and anvil strike by Legion 22. Clash's nearby units have routed. The general hasn't routed because it provides a lot of morale. But thing is that I was a bit too late. Because of that, all the nearby troops are routed. However, I have taken out most of Legion's cavalry to the point where they're very battle damaged and they won't do very much damage. Alright, so I'm gonna try and minimize the other army by charging straight into them. Although this didn't really work.
Now we will see if his men can hold in the face of this calamity.
Although this didn't really work out the way I expected it to, I still have damaged the enemy to the point where they are very, very battle damaged.
If they had discipline, they would not run.
Alright, so if you notice, my troops are relatively fresh compared to the enemy troops, which are all tired, winded, and this may actually work to my advantage. Alright, so I've just routed the rest of Legion cavalry. Tried doing a hammer and anvil, but because his troops were so tattered up, it really did not work out too well. And because of that, it ended up being a bit of a morale letdown. So Ian is going to charge some of his remnant cavalry. I'm going to charge mine straight into that huge clump of troops. And because they're so battle damaged, tattered, worn out, and exhausted to the point, this charge will really rip through their lives.
The gods have filled the heart of the enemy general with fear. Now he
Alright, so because I've just routed Lac Jac's general and the rest of his army, this will lower the morale of the whole entire army. And because of that, Legion's 11-man unit general has just routed.
The gods be praised! The enemy's hearts are full of fear, and now they flee!
Alright, so Godslayer's done a good move, and he's pulled his general back. However, because my troops are more relatively fresh, we were able to fight off all those loads of infantry. So because I stayed away from battle from Legion's side and ran over and held from his cavalry attacks, I was able to keep my troops fresh enough so I can perhaps fight the enemy off. Alright, so my troops are very battle worn, very battle damaged. What I'm gonna do, they're gonna charge straight in. I'm gonna detach 2 cavalry to keep him at bay. I'm going to do this so I can rout his units as well as rout the cavalry units. Alright, so because of that hammer and anvil strike, I was able to strike fear into the enemy's hearts by hitting them from a place where they don't want to be hit, and I've caused their whole entire army to shatter about, and by doing this, I've routed the whole army.
Pursue them and drive. Victory is ours, but only by the narrowest of margins.
Alright, so it was a close victory. Yeah, I very much agree with this. Although I did get the highest kills, in a team battle, things like this are only possible if you work with your team and know when to strike. Because of Ian's sacrifice of cavalry on the other flank, I was able to pull my army back and prevent it from being destroyed by Legion's cavalry force. So because of him, I was able to pull back, keep my troops fresh, and fight to the last man. I got the highest kills, but that's really nothing to brag about because without my team, I wouldn't be able to get such kills. Clash got 1,505 kills. He fought to the tooth and nail, and his cavalry charges on Ian's flank really did prove to have a lot of casualties. Ian, although he got the lowest kills, he was hammered by 3 lots of cavalry, so it's kind of expected, to be honest. However, in 31k, Ian did very well as a teammate, and he sacrificed himself so me and Clash could fight to the last man, and he made the enemy very tired and damaged them to the point where, when it came to the end of the battle, we were able to fight back. Alright, so good game to Godslayer, good game to Lac Jac, good game to Legion 22, good game to iansserver, good game to Clash, good game to myself. Very good game, guys. I wish to play with you again. And here's Brotherhood member Mars saying bye for now, and I hope you enjoyed this match.